So I have here some sides and some angles. So they told me A is 20, capital B is 81 degrees, and C is 28. What are they talking about?
A non-right triangle.
They're talking about some arbitrary non-right triangle. So here's my favorite non-right triangle.
They put a picture of one at the top, like to use as a reference.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter, just draw one someplace.
okay.
Right? And then make sure that you label what? What's the only important thing that you need?
C is the longest side. Well,
Sure, that usually works easiest in my brain.
Usually when they use letters to represent things, like make sure that the capital A for an angle is opposite to the side of the lowercase.
right.
Yeah, that's really the only thing to make sure of. I prefer, as you suggest, to put the C on the long side in my picture. But that's just a personal preference. It doesn't matter at all. So I'm going to put the 28 on the long side. I'm going to put the 20 on one of the other sides. What are you going to call the last side?
that's going to be B.
Lowercase b. And what's special about lowercase b?
It's opposite of angle B, which is 81 degrees.
What was the word you guys came up with a nice word for this last time? You were calling this the side projected by.
And that was Levi.
That was a slick word choice. I like that.
Makes
Oh,
sense to me.
and I don't need the angle B. I need
81.
81 degrees.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you can
Then
use
the question
law of
is,
sines.
what do you do now?
How do you determine which law you use?
Good.
Yeah, that's what I was having trouble with, like picking out.
Good. That's a totally reasonable problem to have. So you could use either. I would, if at all possible, aim for the law of cosines first. Because there's some ambiguity when you take arc sine of things. Why?
Yeah, because most of the domain or the range is in quadrants 1 and 2. I don't know.
Close.
Right? Yes. Okay.
You got the right idea. The range of arcsine is in
Smaller than the domain of sine.
this stuff, right? This is the range of arcsine. It's anything between 0 and 180
I was thinking
degrees.
the arcs. I was thinking the arc sine.
Yeah, arcsine.
Arc cosine arc.
This one's arcsine.
Yeah, I was thinking the.
So arcsine lives in the top half of the unit circle, which means that you could get answers in both quadrants, right, that are valid in a triangle. If you do arc cosine, right, so this is the arc sine stuff up here. If you do arc cosine, that's this stuff. The negative angles in there don't live in triangles, right? So there's only going to be one answer that makes sense in a triangle. The arc sine one, they're weird. They can give you some funky answers near 90 degrees. So you got to be a little careful with arc sine. So I would always suggest that you start with the law of cosines if available. So here, how do you do law of cosine?
Isn't it c squared equals a squared?
Okay,
C squared
so
plus-
off to the side, write down the law of cosines. Law of cosines is like c squared is a squared plus b squared, right? It's like the Pythagorean theorem adjusted by
minus 2a
minus
2ab
2ab cosine of
c.
c. Okay, now do you want to do this with side c?
No, because we don't know who's in c.
No, because you know what side c is, but you,
So we want b squared equals a squared. No, isn't it?
so
Is it?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to think this guy is c, right? So I'm going to do b squared is the other two sides squared, right? So I got 28 squared minus 20 squared plus 20 squared, rather,
Right.
So I was making sure.
minus 2 times 28 times 20
Times the cosine of
times the cosine of
of
81 degrees.
yeah.
Why not c?
Because you substituted.
Thinking that B is A.
Yeah. So if I had to write down what I was doing in red, right? I'm thinking this is like side C, this is like side B, this is like side A, and this is like angle C.
But you just,
And that's arbitrary because it's a non-right triangle.
Yeah, and you could set up the law of cosines however you want,
as long as
right?
it's
Like whichever thing you wanted, wherever you want to put it. You just need that the angle here goes across from this side.
on the other side of the equal sign.
You guys see that? Only important thing is that this angle here is across from that side there. And the other two sides are just the other two sides, of course. Sorry, that sounded condescending. Crap. Okay, so cram this, calculator?
Yeah, I don't have money.
Calculator can't do math. No way.
Probably not. Yeah.
Well,
I can't square 28 in my head.
wait, we have to take the square root of all that, right?
Yeah. So to get b, right, you're going to get b is exactly the square root of 28 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 28 times 20 times the cosine of 81 degrees. Like,
And then just do that in your head.
yeah, and then you just do this in your head and you get a number like,
I got 1,008.79.
Nah, I got
Oh,
31.76.
never mind.
Approximately 31.76.
okay, and then I'm kind of thinking like, hey, does that make sense? That's apparently the long side actually.
That doesn't make sense because the long side has to be projected by the large side.
Oh yeah, but 81 is actually a pretty big angle, right?
It's not
Yeah,
the biggest
it's
guys
almost
see that?
90.
in the diagram. it won't be.
Yeah, in the diagram it's not the biggest angle.
Oh, right. because the
But
diagram
81
isn't
degrees
drawn-
is actually a pretty good sized
Right,
angle,
right?
right?
Right, I forgot that wasn't like drawn to scale.
Does that make sense? So once you get a couple of sides, you might want to redraw your picture a little bit to scale so it doesn't throw you off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You guys cool with that?
yeah.
All right, so here you got 31.76. Then what?
Someone want
Well,
to check me?
now
or
you have all
something?
3 sides.
Yeah, now you have all three sides,
You
right?
do
So you need
law
one of the
signs.
angles.
You can do law of signs.
Yeah, so you can do law of sines to find one of the angles. I'm gonna have to lose my identity thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. Okay, so what's the ratio you know about?
So you can do
Sign.
you do 3176.76 over sine of 81
Okay.
equals another like b over
Wait, not B.
No, no, no.
Yeah, probably not B,
So
right?
28.
or 28 over sine of
Of A.
a.
28 over sine of A, and you
Yeah.
should put an A label right here. Yeah.
That's what's confusing me. Yep. And
You guys
then,
all good with that?
And then blah, 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 blah.
Now find the answer.
Just find a or
Solve for A.
sine of a rather. No.
Cross multiply and divide by 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just let me get away with this crap earlier. This was totally backwards.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I was like confused.
Yeah, this is totally backwards.
Yeah.
Wait, so is it the arc cosine?
If it was like this, arc sine would be just fine because all these are in
Yeah, I
triangles.
thought
And arc
it crossed
cosine
the
would be
line,
all
yeah.
jacked up because it might be this or it might be over here.
Does it,
But those are backwards.
Yeah,
Thanks,
because-
guys.
does it
I
matter
was
if we
wondering
flip
why
over
you
the
did
law
that.
of sines?
No, and we should actually. So it probably would have been better back here to have flipped the law of sines over.
And are you cross multiplying? Is that how it's?
Yeah, and then essentially you're cross multiplying.
You're just gonna cross multiply and then divide by 31.76.
Yeah, so I wish we could get it. Yeah.
Got it.
I feel bad. Okay. So sine of A then is
Yeah.
basically 28 times the sine of 81 degrees over 31.76,
You want
right?
an exact?
Yeah, so hit me with an exact number. So I get sine of A is, oh, and by exact value I mean hit me with an approximation.
0.87.
Okay, so I got sine of A is approximately 0.87.
And then inverse sine.
And then if you arc sine this, so you get A is
It's 60.5 degrees.
is approximately 60.5 degrees. And so that's right
No.
here.
Yeah,
That's 60.5 degrees there,
yeah.
give or take. And so another triangle angle that could fit in there would be this one. You guys all see that?
And so that's okay.
So I should check this one or 180 minus that. But 180 minus that is
119.
119, and 119 doesn't fit in a triangle with 81 degrees. You guys all see that?
Yeah, because then you get 200 degrees.
So it doesn't fit in a triangle, so you don't need to worry about this today.
Anything but -1.
So
Wait, so how do we figure out
So that's not.
angle? How do we figure out angle C then?
How do we figure out angle C? So angle C is approximately 180 minus 81 degrees minus 60.5 degrees.
Oh, I thought you just said we couldn't do that, that's why I was confused.
So I said 180 minus 60.5 is the other thing that has a sine of 0.87 that might fit in a triangle. It'd be 119 degrees. But 119 doesn't fit in with my angle
So
C
you have to do the.
Okay.
or angle B that I already had.
Right, so then that one would be 38.5 for the other. Because 100.
Oh, okay. So in the end here you get 30,
38.5 exactly.
38.5.
Well, actually, because of the other.
Okay. So in the end, you have A is 20, C is 28, B is 81, A is approximately 60.5 degrees, C is approximately 38.5 degrees, and
Lowercase.
B is approximately 31.76.
Woohoo.
Cool?
Is that in our quiz?
And is this the only triangle like this?
What?
No.
Wait,
In other words, is there another possible option for these things?
Oh.
No. Well,
Because we
I'm not
checked
sure.
that with the-
I understand what you're asking.
So I didn't.
Yeah, we kind of checked that right here to say there wasn't a second one. Alternatively, you could think, okay, look, man, if you know a side and another side and the angle in between those, how many ways is there to make that triangle?
There, you can
A
only
lot.
connect the tips of the lines.
One thing you can try, which I would kind of recommend actually, is that you think to yourself like, okay, that's 90 degrees, right? Give or take.
So
The box.
Okay, so 81 might be something like that. So there's my 81 degrees. And then I'm just going to go get a ruler and try it. Right? So I need a side of 28. I should have drawn this a little lower or gotten a little taller. Okay, so there's my side of 28. Here's my side of 20. How many ways are there to finish this triangle off?
One.
Yeah, there's
So
only
I'm gonna
one,
do
right?
that
You know where these
31.76.
two things end, so you just draw that third side in there.
See if it's 31.76.
And I could even actually do a little kind of dirty ballparking here and be like, hey, that's about 30, right? You guys with me on that?
Yes.
So that's a trick you can actually use, right? Make a scale model and see.
So it's almost.
Sometimes that's the right way.
It's almost a right triangle.
Yeah, and this one's almost a right triangle because 81 degrees is pretty close to 90.
Yeah. So.
Cool? Questions, thanks?